You've given the order, and your small fleet has accelerated, burning large amounts of fuel in order to close the gap between you and your quarry. You sit in tense anticipation with your entire crew at battle stations, and you watch your sensors array anxiously for the moment when you've officially entered firing range. There are 3 contacts ahead: the Antigone, a destroyer, a frigate-sized vessel that hasn't been identified, and a small cruiser, also unidentified. It's only a matter of minutes until you're ready to enter the first real combat situation of your career. Here's to hoping it sets a good precedent. Welcome to Celestial Horizons, Operation Bloodhound, Part 3. As you are the commanding officer of the ESS Phobonautis, here are a few things that you need to know. First, updates regarding the decisions you made in Part 2. Regarding if you were going to try and stop the Antigone before it reached the Isarian Gap of the asteroid belt, you voted unanimously to burn the fuel and intercept the ship immediately, ignoring the hijackers' threats regarding the hostage crew. You've given the order to both of your escort vessels, the GNS John Paul and the GNS Imperator, and are currently closing the gap. There's no way to do so stealthily, unfortunately, so you can expect the Antigone and its escorts to be just as prepared as you are for the conflict. Fortunately, you have bigger ships and bigger guns here. Not long after you began accelerating, the Antigone did the same. Your navigations officer is confident that you'll be able to catch them, however, as you have larger fuel reserves and can burn a larger percentage of them. As long as you have enough to go home after intercepting the Antigone, you'll be okay, whereas they have to keep some in reserve to navigate to whatever their final destination will be. Second, you sent the hijackers this message. We compiled it from all of your responses, but believe me when I say it isn't exactly reflective of all the delightful statements you all made. Some of you were chilling, others made us laugh. We'll be sure to share anonymously some of our favorites on our Discord server, so be sure to check there to see the wonderful responses others wrote. Here's what the official message says. To ESS Antigone, from ESS Phobonautis. Surrender. You cannot succeed at this point. Do not harm any more hostages. Bring the Antigone to a full stop, and you will stand a legal and fair trial. However, if you do not cooperate, we will not hesitate to use deadly force against you, your escorts, and even the Antigone, if necessary. This is your opportunity to walk away. Signed, Colonel Longstreet. And here's your message to Rook, your contact working to undermine the Antigone's hijackers from within. Rook, you are a more valuable resource than you know. We were lucky to have you aboard the ESS Antigone. We're coming full force against these hijackers and soon. If you can sabotage the Antigone, such as taking out their weapons or shutting their engines down, do it. Otherwise, your next 2 objectives are to preserve the lives of the crew and to eliminate hostiles. I approve you taking any action you deem necessary here. I'll leave it all up to your judgment. Thanks for helping us, and stay safe. Good luck, and Godspeed. Colonel Longstreet. Third, you just barely got a message back from Rook. You can listen to it in its entirety in Midnight Sentry, Episode 5, Fire and Smoke, on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. But to give you a summary of some of his main statements to you. 1. If you start firing weapons now, then the hijackers will see that they have no use for their hostages. You can expect anywhere from 15 to 20 people to be executed in retaliation. 2. Rook has made sure that you can get a shuttle full of Marines to dock with the Antigone despite its lockdown. If you can get close enough to get a shuttle safely to the starboard docking port, they'll be able to override the door and storm the ship. 3. Rook has tried to sabotage the security and weapon systems on board the Antigone. He's uncertain how effective his attempts were. Previously, the Council of Eberus had managed to secure extra help from the CSD, as they're more commonly called. The CSD, under the direction of Brigadier General Duval, had sent 2 ships to help you, the CSD Catapult, a frigate, and the CSD Kingfisher, a destroyer. They would have turned your little battle group into a mostly functional fleet. But today, you heard that the national government, the Hypatia Commission, was not happy about that deployment. They ordered the Brigadier General to recall the ships and seek official authorization before committing military resources. It looks like, for now, it's just going to be you and the 2 ships currently with you. We'll see what other help the Council of Eberus, our Patreon group, is able to scrounge up for you. As a last update regarding your active saboteur situation, your mostly non-invasive efforts have been fruitful. Your team captured a second saboteur, a balding man in his mid-40s with a valid ID card, surprisingly. They only caught him because they found several kilograms of plastic explosives stuffed inside his locker. He too is refusing to cooperate with your security teams, but he has been brought into custody and his explosives safely managed. Your chief of security is very concerned by this finding and is certain that there are more in the ship. This brings us to your first decision. As you're now closing in on the Antigone, your chief of security suggests that you lock down the entire vessel and conduct a thorough, full-intensity sweep for smuggled firearms, explosives, or other violent forms of disruption. Whoever is behind this hijacking isn't messing around. Doing so would make battle stations impossible to maintain, so you'd need to delay engaging the Antigone for 18 to 22 hours. When your ship is over 1 kilometer long, it takes a long time to search. It would be a certain way to find any other saboteurs, but the Antigone is getting close to the asteroid belt. Stopping now means that you'll intercept the Antigone after it gets into the asteroid belt, and who knows what is waiting for you there. If you choose to do the thorough search, go to Path A. If you choose to skip the thorough search and rely on your established method of finding saboteurs, go to Path B. The timestamps for these paths can be found in the video description below. You've chosen Path A to do a thorough search. It's a long wait, watching the Antigone streak towards their destination, all while your security teams comb through the ship, turning it inside out, top to bottom. You follow them into the asteroid belt and turn your telescopes out around you, searching for any sign of other ships. You pass the occasional small mining platform or transport vessel on its way to the inner solar system. Your escorts are just as nervous as you are, and your entire crew is put on edge by the lockdown. But your security teams do arrest 2 individuals, one without proper identification, trying to evade the lockdown. Their goal is unclear, but they've been detained. The other one had a large stash of plastic explosives in the space between a toilet bowl and the back wall. Had they the opportunity to use those, the results could have been disastrous. You're glad you took the chance to find those people before they became problems. That doesn't mean that there aren't any traitors in your own ranks, but at least you're confident that you've found all the people that aren't supposed to be there. Now you're ready to engage the Antigone. That's an alert from sensors, a new contact ahead. Your team gets a few long-duration images, and discovers a small station tucked into the concave side of an asteroid with a radius of 112 kilometers. It looks like a heavily modified mining hub with some startlingly large point defense systems for shooting down incoming weapons, 3 very illegally implemented railguns, much more sophisticated than anything marauders or scavengers would have access to, and an expanded launch bay area. Your tactical analysts think it could house fighters. Whoever built this kept it off of official registries. How did the CSD not notice this? Aren't they supposed to be patrolling this region? Whatever the reason for its existence, this is a veritable fortress. A battle here is not going to be a simple shootout, especially now that the Antigone has the extra protection of the station and whatever other surprises it holds. You think that you still may be able to win this one. Your ships are large and more technologically advanced than the ones you're up against. But you don't have enough of a support fleet to get away without possibly significant losses. If only you had a destroyer or some smaller vessels to get in close quickly. You have a decision to make here. Follow through with your attack now that this station is going to be a part of the battle? You may be victorious, but your ship will certainly take some hits. Do you use some of your critically low levels of fuel to pull back, to reevaluate, and to wait for more backup? That will let you try to stop anybody else from coming and going to the station, or perhaps give you a chance to negotiate. Or maybe give Rook more of a chance to do something on the inside before you start blowing holes in things. But it also gives them time to get more people on the Antigone, which means it will be an even bigger problem in the battle to get it back. Right now it's running on less than a skeleton crew, but maybe setting up nearby lets you plan some sort of covert operation to get the Antigone. Or do you pull out entirely, using your sparse fuel reserves to reverse course and get back out of the asteroid belt? You'd be abandoning the Antigone for now, but you'd potentially avoid any other tricks that these hijackers have waiting for you in the belt. Not to mention, it'd be easier to rendezvous with other ships to build your offensive force, or to get a resupply of fuel so that you can be more maneuverable. Or do you want to do something totally different? In the description below, there's a link that will take you to a short survey. It will ask you about what you chose to do with the saboteur situation, and then ask you what you want to do about the Antigone and this approaching battle now that you've caught up. It will also give you a chance to send a message to anybody you'd like, be it the hijackers, the station, Rook, or the Council. This form closes on Monday, December 6th at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Operation Bloodhound Part 4 releases Wednesday, December 8th. Be sure to check out Midnight Sentry, the podcast that reflects both your actions here and the actions of the Council of Eberus, our Patreon group. Given from the perspective of messages from Rook to the Council of Eberus, it releases weekly for general audiences on Thursdays. As you consider your options, good luck and Godspeed. You've chosen Path B, to catch the Antigone now and not lock down your ship to search for saboteurs. You inform your crew to get ready and instruct the GNS John Paul and the GNS Imperator to join you in targeting the small cruiser. They acknowledge and load their weapons. The whole crew is tense, nervous, excited, terrified. None of them have been in a real combat situation before. Let's hope the drills and training you've conducted was enough. Your ship creeps closer and closer to firing range.
In 20.
Firing
19.
Newton second is like firing a large truck at 50,000 kilometers per hour at a boat. It's gonna be a bad day to be on board whatever you're targeting.
We're in range.
The darkness of space is lit up by the light of your weapons. Your 2 escorts follow suit, firing just a few seconds later, and death screams silently through the void. The enemy vessel, anticipating this, are already activating their point defense systems, waiting for the projectiles to get into their effective range in hopes of shooting them down. It's almost beautiful watching one of the nose-mounted cameras on your vessel. How the little specks of light spontaneously produce others, like fireflies coming out on a summer night. But they're not insects, you remind yourself as your weapons bear down upon their flimsy targets. It'll be 4 minutes before they reach the small cruiser. You can fire 2 more times before then. You give the order to fire once more at the cruiser, and then to start switching targets to the frigate. You think of the crew on the Antigone. Hopefully Rook can use this opportunity to get some of them out alive. The frigate is turning around, probably to close the gap so it can tear into your escorts. The cruiser appears to be too distracted by your weapons to do anything more than simple evasive maneuvers. The Antigone is accelerating away from the fight. It looks like the escorts are going to try to stall you while the Antigone gets away, even if doing so amounts to a suicide mission.
Oh, no!
What's going on?
Somebody check that out.
Did anyone see anything?
Was that?
Was there anything on sensors?
They haven't been able to line up a shot yet.
Is
Your
everyone
team
all right?
flips through the cameras. No significant external damage.
The railgun isn't responding. I've got alerts from Sector 7, dorsal.
The most plausible explanation? Another saboteur with explosives. They must have felt you firing and tried to shut it down. It will be at least a few minutes before your people can get any significant damage report, though repairs will likely take days or weeks. The cruiser managed to shoot down your first railgun shot. The frigate got one off towards you, but your point defense systems and the aid of your escorts destroys the projectiles before they can even come close. Then, confirmation comes from your second shot. A direct hit, right through the center of the cruiser. Your tactical officer estimates that it went in at an angle of 11 degrees from the center line, about 2/3 of the way back, tearing through the hole and the decks and actually passing out the other side. Flimsy ship indeed. The cruiser was critically damaged and likely disabled entirely, but you need more time to know for sure. But the Antigone is trying to get away, burning through a shocking amount of fuel to accelerate out of there quickly. You have a choice to make. What is your order in this moment? Do you try and pursue the Antigone yourself, even though your main railgun is offline? You have plenty of other smaller weapons, not to mention teams of Marines ready to board them. However, keeping up would mean that you don't truly have enough fuel to completely stop your vessel, let alone turn around and go home. So even if you do capture the Antigone, you may be adrift until someone can resupply you. Unfortunately, your ship was not designed for long chases. You and your fleets would also have to battle the frigate as you flew past it, which does make that fight more dangerous. Or do you stay behind to deal with the escorts and dispatch one of your other 2 ships to chase down the Antigone? Either the John Paul, the cruiser, or the Imperator, the heavy cruiser, could theoretically capture the Antigone alone, though the John Paul would probably be the better choice due to its comparative speed. And now that you've gotten one enemy disabled, you're positive disabling the other will not be challenging. Maybe you can interrogate anybody you capture from the other 2 vessels and get some more information on what their plans are and who's behind all of this. Alternatively, you can send both the John Paul and the Imperator to chase down the Antigone, and you stay behind to deal with the little frigate and what's left of the cruiser yourself. Or you keep your fleet together. You avoid charging off into unknown territory and deal with these 2 escorts first and then track down the Antigone later. Perhaps Rook can give you another lead. Or maybe the Council of Eberus can get you some extra help before you plunge into the unknown. Or do you do something else entirely? In the description below, there's a link that will take you to a short survey. It will ask about what you chose to do about the saboteur situation, and then ask you what you want to do about the fleeing Antigone and the other 2 ships trying to delay you. It will also give you a chance to send a message to anybody you'd like, be it the hijackers, the station, Rook, or the Council. This form closes on Monday, December 6th at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Operation Bloodhound Part 4 releases on Wednesday, December 8th. Be sure to check out Midnight Sentry, the podcast that reflects both your actions here and The Actions of the Council of Eberus, our Patreon group. Given from the perspective of messages from Rook to the Council of Eberus, it releases weekly for general audiences on Thursdays. As you consider your options, good luck and Godspeed.